Hello and welcome to Teching It Up with Mark. Today we're going to call a smart object via a Powershell script. So what exactly we're going to do is we're going to first connect to the K2 server using a Powershell script. To do that, we're going to find out what port K2 is running on. If you don't have that information, we got a small Powershell script we can run. We're going to get the DLLs we need for this script from K2. We're going to create a SmartObject server object, connect that to the K2 server, then we're going to call a list method, then we're going to call a create method, and then just verify the results. So let's get started. So first, what's required to do this is we need access to the K2 server. This could either be direct, like it is on my VM right here, or this can be remotely as long as that port is opened up. So usually it's port 5555, but it could be something else. You need PowerShell to run that, either remotely or on the server. And you need two K2 Dlls. So those will be SourceCode.SmartObject.Client and SourceCode.HostClientAPI and a SmartObject to call. So let's go through this. So you can see here, I'm on my local server. I have this leave request smart object that I'm going to call. So if I just use this here, so then this is my little browser plugin that I built for this, but this is the same as executing in management, and I execute the get list method. You can see that it returns 3 rows, and this is just a smart box smart objects with just employee names and ID specified. So we're going to try to crawl all this same thing from a PowerShell script and then add something to it. So for this, I'm going to open up PowerShell ISE because I think that's easiest for editing and it's usually available on the server. I would recommend trying to do this with Visual Studio Code if possible. I think the tools are a little bit better, but PowerShell ISE still seems to be available everywhere, so we'll start with that. All right, so the first thing we want to do is find out what is a connection info for our K2 server. So basically what port the SmartObject server is running on. So for the URL, I could just use my K2 URL, or I could use localhost because it's all mapped to the same thing here. But for the port, we need the SmartObject server port. So this is typically port 5555, and well, the workflow server is 5252, but of course this could be anything. You configure this when you're actually creating or installing K2. So what I'm doing here, I just asked Copilot for a PowerShell script to get all the running processes or all the listening processes on their port. And I'll link this too. And I'll just use that here. And we see a bunch of processes here. A couple of source code ones, which was the old company that used to own K2 before it was sold. But I see 2, well, let's see, the local port, and then we have the process here. I see 2 processes for K2 host server, and we could see here that one is 5555 and one is 5252. So from this view, we can't determine which is the workflow server and which is the SmartObject server. I know it is 5555 because I already tested this, but you could just try them both if needed. Okay, so let's just write this out here. So that was the first step. Oop. Find the K2 port, SmartObject port. That will just be a manual step. Now the next thing we want to do is load the assemblies needed. Now, as I mentioned before, and this is in the K2 documentation, this was SourceCode.SmartObjects.Client API and SourceCode.HostClientAPI. So if we go to the K2 directory, so usually I have this mapped here. It might just be called K2 and program files 86 or just in program files. Then if I search here, I can search for, let's see first. We'll go to HostClientAPI. And I want to add this, so whatever one I usually do from the bin. So I'm just clicking Shift, right click, copy as path, and we'll do add type. And we have path. Let me just make sure this actually loads. Cool, no error. And then we'll do the same thing for the second assembly needed. That is SmartObjects.Client. You could probably find this in several directories again. I don't think it makes a difference where you take it out. But I'll copy it from the same one. Once again, that was Shift right click to get this copy as path. And I'll just run that line. Great, didn't complain about anything. So the first thing we're going to have to do here is create a connection string. So actually, we'll start the opposite way around. First thing we'll do is create the SMO server, the Smart Object server. So this is what we'll actually use to execute the smart objects, connect to everything. So we got to go SMO server will be our object name, and we'll use new object with the type name SourceCode.SmartObjects.Client. Smelled right. Smart Object Client. Good, it's finding it for us. Client server. So let's try that. Good, we got something. Let's just take a look at this object. Not much there. Let's try it down here in the console. We have many methods, or at least a few. Execute list, what we'll use to execute a list method. Execute scalar, what we'll use to actually execute a method that's not a list method. But the first thing we have to do is create a connection here. So we'll use first this create the connection to create the connection object, and then we'll set the connection. So we'll go, since this object isn't actually connected to anything yet, we could have created this locally, not on a K2 server if we had that DLL. So we'll create connection. That's the only thing needed in this method. Good, gave us some output. And now we have this connection object. Let's see. SMO server connection. Let's just take a look at that. I think it's the same as what's below. Yep. So we have to specify what the host is, what kind of security, and what the server is. So in order to do that, we actually have to create a connection string. There is a connection string builder for us. So we'll say CS connection string equals new object, type name, source code. I wish this smart objects. Oh, source code hosting actually. Client base API. Now it's nice to us. SC connection string builder. All right, now we have that. Let's just take a quick look at this. Good. We have a bunch of properties that we could set, and eventually we'll just use this connection string property. So I'm going off the example that's actually listed on the K2 or Nintex website. First we'll put host, capitalized, and we can put localhost or the name of our K2 server. Shouldn't matter, since this is mapped in my host server file, it's all the same. cs.port, and we'll do 5555, what we got from the earlier command. cs integrated, which I assume stands for integrated security. We'll put that to true. And cs is primary login, also to true. Not sure if this one's actually necessary, but we'll put it in. All right, so we'll run these, and now we'll set this connection in our SmartObject server. So connection dot open, and we'll put in the cs dot connection string. Let's see. Good. True. Now we have this SMO server. Let's just execute that again. Let's see, do we have anything interesting here? Get smart objects. Fortunately, it's not giving me a list here. Do we have anything interesting here? Not really. What we will do is get smart object. So we'll actually put this in another line. Get an SMO. So we'll say SMO server. Get smart object. And I think we have two methods here. Let's see. So we have one with the system name, one with the GUID, one with the system name long version. I have no idea what that is. Maybe that's the display name. But for this, we'll use system name. And we'll use this smart object that we had before, leave request. So in these properties, we see system name. It could be different than the display name. So it puts an underscore for every space in it. But let's use this. Get smart object. Leave request. Oh. And we'll call this leave request SMO. Execute it. Good, no error. If we execute this by itself, we have the properties, ID, leave request title, employee name, employee email. I could compare that to this. And of course, we have the same properties. Since this is just a SmartBox smart object, so smart object here, not an advanced smart object, we just have the standard methods, the CRUD methods, create, read, update, delete, list. And we can see that here. Create, save, not update, delete, load. And we have one list method, get list here. All right, so the first thing we'll do with this smart object, we'll just try to use a list method. Or actually, we could explore this a little bit more. We'll say leave request, all methods, list methods. We'll just output this here. So there's just one thing that came out. Get list. So in order to use that, we'll go leave request, method to execute. And put that to this get list. Okay. We use the smart object by itself. We should see that set. Method to execute, get list. Great. And to actually call this, we're going to put this in another object, list results. And we're going to go to our SMO server, and we're going to click execute list, and then just put this smart object in SMO, not SMO server, but leave request SMO results. Let me just spell that nice. Okay, didn't get an error. If we look at this by itself, we see that it comes back with a property, 2 properties, or 4 properties actually, and one has a list of several. So we'll just take a better look at that. Say list results, smart object list. Good. We see 3 things that came back here. And what we'll just do is just go through this list quickly. So we'll take this, we'll put it into a pipe, and then for each in PowerShell. And this is just what we'll put in the for each. So we'll put in a right host, and that will say is result. Or actually, we'll just write the property first. Let's see, this might result in an extra line. Leave request, leave request, leave request. Good, it just gave the name, but at least it gave all 3. What do we want to do with this? So it gave the name, the metadata, I guess, for that. What we do want though is the properties. So what we're going to do, host dot properties. See how this looks? Doesn't look like anything, huh? Oh, because we spelled properties wrong. Properties. Good. We got all the properties here, but we don't have the names or values, so we'd have to kind of iterate through that again. So what I'll do is just do first a write host, and we'll just say result. And then we'll just do another loop underneath here. So we'll close this off so we can go to a second line. We should probably do this in 2 lines so it looks a little bit nicer. We will. Result. And then with the second one, we want to actually go through all the properties. So each one of these properties. pipe that result into another for each. I can find where it is. I think we're off by 1. This is why I like Visual Studio Code up better. It helps us a little bit more. All right. And so for this, we're going to do another write host. And within that, we just want the output of those properties. So we'll do a couple of spaces here. So I worked on this before, obviously. And then from each one of those properties that will come in, this is kind of the this or the local variable from there. We want the property name as one of the properties, plus something in the middle, plus the value. All right. It seems like we messed something up there. Let's take a look. Oh no, very good. So we could see here I have the same results as I did before. Employee name Mark Smith. For ID 1, for ID 2, we have Don Trump. For ID 3, we have Camilla Harris. And obviously, if I execute this with my SmartObject, the getList method, I'm going to have the same results. So one final thing I want to do here is use the create method. So use the SMO create method. So I'm going to use the same SmartObject. I'm just going to go all methods, make sure we get the spelling right. Let's see, this is getList. Nope, that's the type. Load, delete, all methods. So we could actually do this a little bit nicer. We use the pipe again. Dot name, just so we don't have so many results. Oh, need the for each. I might need to put that in a loop. I need to put that in a loop. Or in brackets. Okay, good. So with the name we want is create. So we'll copy this method to execute. This time create. We'll run this. Once I run the SmartObject by itself, we'll see that this is set. Method to execute, create. Awesome. One thing you do notice here is that there are properties. And let's just go through those properties, see what's there. So we'll go leave request, properties. These might still be, well, actually. All right, so we have all the properties that we have there. Let's just make sure nothing is already specified. Employee name, good. It's empty. The value is empty, right? Oh, getting a little pause on my server. Employee name, good. Empty. So what we have to do is set these properties, or set the properties that we want. And you can see we're in this list already. We can just index into them. And the one I want to set is name. And since this is a whole object, we can't just set this directly here. We have to make sure we're setting the value part. So we'll put value equals Joe Biden. Good. We'll execute that. Name. We got error is value property cannot be found on this object. Verify that the property exists. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's employee name. Ugh. Clicking on here. Employee name. Execute. Good. It's not complaining about anything. I'm just going to do this by itself. Good. We see that the value is Joe Biden. Now we just have to execute this. So we'll go back to our SMO server. Execute scalar this time since it's not a list method. And then we'll send in the leave request smart object. Execute. Did it go? Let's see. What do we got here? Do we need to set this to something? I don't think so. Create. What did we do wrong here? Method name. Good. Leave request SMO. Method to execute is create. It's spelled right. Oh. You know what? I wonder if it's because I put the extra property here. Request status. Leave type. Employee email. Employee name. Leave request title. ID. Looks okay to me. Leave request SMO. Still feel like it's because we got that name before. All right. So I'm going to just get this again, the smart object. Put this method to execute, to create. Set the property name to Joe Biden. And execute again. This time no error. Not sure what happened. I guess I should have declared that a new again. But let's check this out. Let's execute our get list method again. Hey, we got 2 Joe Bidens. So, go. Great. So where would I actually use this? Sometimes I'm actually using this when I'm testing smart objects or creating a smart object custom service broker, and I have to test the same things again with the input, and I would normally have to close down the page and do that again. I could kind of automate that whole thing. For scripting, it could also be quite nice. So maybe we don't want to do this in a workflow. We might have access to other systems that we could get use here, or maybe information for a report. We could do that with PowerShell. So basically anything, yeah, where you would need this information, probably one-time jobs. Great. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe. I could do some more videos. Let me know if there's any suggestions for other ones. And yep, enjoy your evening. Thank you.